So we're going to start here, and we're going to go around, and every panelist will do introductions, and they'll answer, who they are, what they do, and what they love questions about, what they love answering. So we'll go down the line.
Hey, folks. I am Dan Delmarsky. I am a member of technical staff at Anthropic focused on MCP. I'm hauling here by way of Seattle, so go Seahawks. There we go. All right. And if you have questions, I'm here to talk about MCP.
Hi, everyone. I'm Hanbi. I'm a co-founder at Mintlify. We create public-facing developer documentation for other companies. Feel free to ask me anything about dev tools in general and how agents are impacting the web.
Hi, everyone. This is Vijay. I'm co-founder of Atomicwork. You can ask me anything about building AI agents for enterprises.
Hey, everybody. I'm Sam Crowder. I'm the head of product at LangChain. LangChain builds a suite of products and services that helps people build reliable agents. So you can ask me anything about observability and evaluation for AI agents.
All right, what a panel. Okay, so we'll get started. We'll do some questions. And be thinking of your questions because we'll turn it around, pass the mic around. And let's get started. So, first question. Oh, too many. Oh, no. Sneak peeks.
All of them all at once.
Yeah. So, this question, this is not what do you think will happen, it's what will happen in 2026 for agents and SaaS development. Is a SaaS-pocalypse coming?
I think we should give this question to the person who asked this question first.
Yes, this is courtesy of Hanbi.
Yeah, so I think that there is a large range of AI adoption where you have, the people who are at the cutting edge and adopting things, and also enterprises that are, moving a little slower to adoption. But eventually, everybody will be adopting AI and agents. And I think that all SaaS companies should be working on building agents and making sure that their customers are using their agents. And I think a lot of what was difficult about SaaS was building this multi-tenant solution that's applicable across multiple customers. But now that coding agents have gotten so good, it's so easy for you to vibe code your own solution that's custom for yourself. And so I think that everybody who's building software should be investing heavily in agents.
Yeah, I think I agree with that statement. I think that's actually very, very accurate in the sense that what we're trying to do now also is to go where people already are. Mm-hmm. And so we know a lot of folks that are using Claude or OpenAI's tools or any other of the kind of myriad of tools that are out there, but they live inside their chat interface. They use agents. They send agents to do things autonomously. And you might have seen that this January, a few weeks back, we launched MCP apps. And MCP apps is basically an extension to the protocol that allows you to bring UI and a lot of these UI experience directly into where you are in Claude or ChatGPT, for example, right? So I think that's a superpower unlock where a lot of these SaaS services were before you had to context switch. If you go, look at your CRM, find customer data, export it to CSV, paste it back into Claude and ask you to analyze it. Now you can just tell Claude, I have this Salesforce or any other MCP server, use it, query for my customer data, analyze it, ask, for patterns, and it just lives there. So I don't context switch, and I operated multiple MCP servers in just one place, which I think is really, really cool.
I mean, I think a SaaS apocalypse is probably not happening in 2026. I think it's just sort of the history of industry that eventually every industry is obsolete. It's just a question of not if it happens, but when it happens. I do think that as technology and AI increases in capability, it happens more quickly. But I think what protects SaaS companies, software companies, whatever you call them, in the shorter to more medium term is how difficult is the last mile problem that you are solving. So if you look, think about a marketing content generation thing around the time of the release of ChatGPT, like that was a relatively easy last mile because it was like take a GPT model, like prompt it to generate marketing content, copy and paste that content, and then do with it whatever you want to do with it. That became irrelevant pretty quickly, but like if you're solving these more complex last mile problems that deliver AI to end users, then you're going to last longer. But certainly, like I think every industry eventually is obsolete. It's going to happen to software. It's going to happen to SaaS. It's just, I don't think it's happening this year. It's a question of how long does it take and how much value can you create and capture in the meantime.
Yeah, I mean, like in tech, we like to overestimate things in a short run and underestimate them in a long run. So I think the UI SaaS, like there are 3 types of SaaS, at least from my perspective. The UI SaaS is in trouble for sure. Then there is this infrastructure kind of a SaaS, they are in a little bit of trouble, but I think they'll mostly scrape through because, a lot of these agents that we want to build need that middleware or underlying infrastructure. But if you're building a SaaS company today, build a system of agents, don't build a system of workflows.
Yeah, that's actually a very good point because one of the interesting things that I had this kind of thought myself, that the superpower that a lot of companies can build right now is to have a proper API, have CLIs, have MCP servers, because that will make it super intuitive to integrate your product with this fleet of agents that people are using. Like, right, we already see this happening today where folks are wrapping things in MCP servers just because you want to have Claude go and do things. And the way to do this is to use either a CLI that's well documented that Claude can consume or have an MCP server. And I think that is a shift in how you design things, because prior to that, you're like, well, we need to have an API that powers this UI that then people go and log in and click. And now it's like, I don't really need that UI layer. I just want this to be accessible programmatically. How do you do that?
Yeah, being developer first is being agent first.
100%.
So a thought that comes from all of these is, a couple years ago, before all of this, you would said like, oh, what's a moat? What's a defensible moat? And like integrations was a pretty big one, right? As far as I integrate with 500 apps, you integrate with 10, people are probably going to use my stuff. We talk about MCP and it's just like universal. What is the moat in the next year?
The moat is if your service can solve actual customer problems. I think that like, really that is the moat. Like, are you building something that solves a real problem, or is it creating artificial fences around like, oh, you have to go to our little thing to log in and do the job, versus we're actually helping you be more productive. We're helping you be much more efficient in what you're trying to do. And we see a lot of this, right, with products like all these like agentic orchestrators, because there's clearly a need for people to go and automate things, but it stems from the fact that they have real problems that need to be solved.
Yeah, I would add to that, like a moat is like, are you solving a real customer problem? And then also like, does your company have a culture that allows you to continue doing that? Like I think back to, I think it's Paul Graham, Y Combinator, talks about like what made Stripe work and make them successful. He talks about this concept of schlep blindness. Like at face value, the idea of Stripe was not all that new or complicated. Like enable easy payments on the internet. Easy enough sounding idea, like really hard to actually go and like integrate with credit card processors, integrate with banks, and like those guys just happened to be willing to go through that schlep and be like blind to how difficult it would be, and then in the end pull it off. And so I think like that continues to be a form of moat, is like, do you solve a real customer problem, and are you culturally like set up in a way that allows you to continue to do that and get past these kinds of last mile schleps?
Yeah, I mean, like, VCs love moats, but as a founder and a builder, my thing is like pick a problem, go deep in it, and continue to solve and get really good at solving that problem for a set of customers or a broad base of segment. That's how you kind of compound, the value in what you do. If you keep thinking about moats, it's really hard. It was always hard. I think it's much harder, these days. With every day people will basically say, oh, there's a fast model, now I can code. I think this vibe coding is like, is a very useful, there are a lot of internal apps people build, they'll continue to use, but like nobody will build, complex systems, because building is like 10% of the cost, but continue to manage it and maintain it, evolve it, support it, patch it, config it, change it, access control it. I mean, like this thing takes people and effort. It's almost like you can build an AI agent in 10 minutes, but if you want to put that into production, probably it will take 100 hours of work, But you can literally build even now, like in 10 minutes, you can build an agent, that you can potentially demo.
Yeah, plus one to everything that everyone said. And in addition to that, a startup's moat is always their ability to ship fast and faster than, big tech. And then a second thing, I guess that's like a little bit more like pointed to double click on like the whole agent thing is I also think that everyone should be investing in like and tinkering with like building their own agent harness. And I think that there is, a lot about like Anthropic has the best one, but I think that there is value in, like tinkering with this like yourself and challenging yourself to build something better.
Love it. Okay. Question 2. And this is like not what you think developers' balance should be. This is what is your balance, your personal balance between traditional deterministic versus probabilistic tools. And I guess to use your term from earlier, how AGI pilled are you?
I personally am very AGI pilled because it's one of those things where to this question, the lines are pretty blurry right now. Like, I don't think there's a good kind of very clear-cut thing that I would say, like, this is where it's deterministic, this is where probabilistic, because we were chatting before this panel, and I mentioned that my life runs on Claude Code. Like, it literally, like, I put it inside a sandbox, it controls, like, stuff in my house, like the temperature and who's at the door, and I can tell it to prep me some email for a medical appointment. Or, like, it just does things for you. And for a lot of these things before, I would have to say, like, oh, you have to go and find the API and write a script for it and then run that script on a schedule and host it. Now I just ask Claude to do it, right? And Claude behind the scenes does write all these scripts and it automates things, but I'm not in the picture. Like, and this is where you can treat it as like, for some people it could be like bittersweet because there was a certain pleasure in the process, right? Of like, I automated this for myself, but versus like, I'd rather spend my time on other things that are much more meaningful than me writing bash scripts. And yeah, so I'd say like it's like I don't have a clear cut. I don't know about you folks.
Yeah, well, I used to like this question used to really get to me. I used to think about this a lot, and I realized that it's not about being right all the time. I realized that in some cases, like where AI is helpful is that it's better than Google. Like if you're thinking about like a futuristic world, like Big Hero 6 with like Baymax, right? I think that's like kind of like Baymax is AI. And if you're hurt and you're asking Google like, oh, what should I do, or what do you think I have, and it's telling you have cancer, and then you ask like Claude, and it tells you like realistic steps on how to get better. Like that, like there isn't really a right answer, like code that's like you can test and run, but it's so helpful. And so I've grown to like not like think too much about this deterministic. I just think about like, is it helpful or not? And the answer is yes.
Oh yeah, 100%. I am a nerd that plays a lot of Halo, and if any of you know Cortana, like, we're living in the era where that kind of is there. Not minus the hologram and everything, but like the modality and the some of the capabilities are there, which is kind of wild to think, right?
I think one workflow that's pretty relevant today, at least, I don't know about the future, but is using the deterministic to guardrail the probabilistic, essentially. Like that comes into play with MCP and like plugging tools into models where like the call of the tool is probabilistic, but the tool itself is generally deterministic and grounds like the next probabilistic generation in some kind of determinism. Like another coding pattern I still often use is like developing tests first. The tests themselves are deterministic, and then using the probabilistic model to like generate the feature and like ensuring that it conforms to the test. There's kind of a circular reference in that, given I use the probabilistic model to generate the deterministic tests anyway, and we'll see like how that loop evolves. But I think today, like those kinds of workflows are still very relevant.
Yeah, like how many of you are building for enterprise? Not bad, right? So I'll probably give the answer from that perspective, right? So if you look at any problem, if you take a problem domain, and if you're solving for it, broadly you can break that into 3 levels of autonomy, right? There could be a use case where you can give full autonomy. In our case, it's basically like provision an account. You can give full autonomy to the agent, but unlock an account, you can't give a full autonomy, because you need to basically make sure that that person is not marked for an exit, he's not on an PIP, and he was not terminated. So you need to basically have constrained autonomy, and then there is this human in the loop where you need to basically say, somebody can say, give me access to the system, but you need to go validate that whether this person is really an employee, should he get access to it, and does manager requires an approval. So think of it like layered, autonomy, instead of thinking whether it's AGI or not, right? That's typically tech likes this polar opposites, but the world is a little bit more, there is a middle, right? There is full autonomy, there is a constrained autonomy, there is a human in the loop. I don't think in a near future that will dramatically change, whether it's a coding agent or whether it's building an app or you are building an enterprise agent.
Great. I just want to add on, if anybody here works at Microsoft, you got to rename Copilot back to Cortana.
That could have been my past job, but not anymore.
All right.
Microsoft gets paid for building Active Directory because that controls the access to all the agents in the enterprise, whether the agent comes from Claude or OpenAI or from LangChain or Atomicwork. So I think they're going to be around for some time.
Okay, so what responsibilities do developers have in building software that is digestible for AI agents?
I'm a firm believer that you just have to keep it simple. Sometimes I see developers overthink and create these super custom solutions. Oh, we're gonna do these tracking things and we're gonna give it fancy names, and it trends on Hacker News for a day and then it just disappears. I think, as I mentioned before, having a solid API, having good documentation, right? This is key. Having something that is following standards for things like auth, right? Because one of the things that we did with MCP is we actually built a proper OAuth 2.1 compliance spec, right? So if you're using OAuth and it's standard and it's not something super custom, things just work. So a lot of these super simple things actually accrue to a lot, right? And there's capabilities that people talk about, how do you instrument your websites to be agent consumable? It's just write clean HTML. That's how you instrument your site. Just keep it simple, because a lot of the modern models are really good about reading HTML. They're really good about parsing this content out for you. You don't need a lot of this super custom cruft.
Yeah, I will answer this question from the perspective of documentation. And I think the baseline here is that humans naturally do not update the docs. And so it's not that we're working with too much context. It's that the context is not there. And that doesn't mean that you should just generate things from code. I think there was a time when I was working on a doc stream generator for a code base, and there's a reason why I'm no longer working on that, because I don't think that that's the right approach. Having user-centric docs, quick starts and whatnot, is exactly what an agent needs. And I think the reality is that we live in a world where people don't write good versions of that. And so my recommendation is to invest in that, because it's becoming more important as agents are now relying on this content in order to go do their own thing. And if it's wrong, you're impacting the agent infrastructure and the adoption of your SaaS.
Maybe the moat that we talked about earlier is just good docs, right? That's the moat. How many good docs do you know?
Yeah.
That was one hand.
Two.
Yeah.
I have another answer. I think I agree that the right answer to this is pretty simple in nature. So my answer is a little bit more internal. As we build software at LangChain, we're working on LangSmith and other products. Claude Code is now pretty ubiquitous. And how do we build software that agents can use well? We basically just have to litter our code base with artifacts that make it effective for Claude Code to work on the code base further. So that looks like Claude.markdown files, in our root of our repository and other subdirectories, and those those are becoming at our company, and I'm sure many other companies, like very much living, breathing things that like the better they are and the more up to date they are, like the higher quality software you can ship. So as we like change like package structures, change like test dependencies that get injected, like we change that line by line, like push it up in the same commit, and like then the next developer that comes along can like out of the box have that new thing easily.
Yeah, I mean, like my thing is first, like whatever use case you're trying to solve, don't build too many agents, okay? And because most things that people, I mean, I see at least from a developer's perspective is what could be accomplished through a skill. They'll build an agent, then it becomes like a multi-agent coordination, problem. And two is software is always consumed by humans, and then we said, hey, we'll expose APIs so that other systems can consume. Now we are basically saying, hey, agents can consume. So I think while the human consumption might go down, but the API consumption, whether that's through MCP or a tool call or another agent, through some kind of a gateway or A2A, that's going to go up. So systems thinking is like a lot more important than code gen. So if you're a developer, stop thinking like a coder, start thinking like a builder, who basically says, why am I solving this? How should I build and approach it? That's better way of thinking of it than saying, let me go build one agent using Anthropic agent SDK and another one using LangChain. I'll build this coordination queue using file system so these multi-agents can work together. In most cases, you don't need, really, I mean, like, don't complicate things. As engineers, we tend to complicate things.
Yeah, wait, one thing I like to add to this is that just last month for Mintlify documentation, we had like 20 million visitors in January, and half of it was AI agents. And so this future that we're talking about, where with like AI agents are overtaking the internet, it's here. So like we shouldn't talk about it like it's the future, and I'm sure it's just going to go up. And it's not like the human viewership is going down. It's just that the AI viewership is going up so much.
Yeah, I was going to ask to follow up on that. Like, by the end of 2026, what % of Mintlify doc visitors do you think would be an AI agent?
I think it's going to be like 90% and 10% humans.
That's amazing. Like that January stat's fantastic.
Yeah.
Do you think it's probably both, right? Like one is AI agents are just going to be, there's going to be more of them and doing more work. But two, will users just default to like not go to the docs, right? Like, so both of those things put together kind of like adjust that number.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, there is a human behind the agent, like somebody, deployed the thing to be out there.
Yeah.
But I definitely think the modality at which people, which people are consuming it is changing.
It's so much faster. Yeah.
Like web is so vast. It's not built for humans, right? Humans, how many pages do we consume? One page, like, whatever, 3 pages, 10 pages. But agents can go do a deep discovery. So I do think web is actually built for agents. It's not built for humans.
Yeah. And I'm sure the stat that I have is not even 100% accurate because there isn't like a clear way of like determining when something is an agent or not yet.
I mean, like even in our case, if somebody says my Zoom has crashed, like we need to go like search from Reddit forum to Zoom documentation to what people are saying on Twitter to, I'm like, if you expect an IT engineer to go do that, I mean, like he just can't do it because they will probably just go read like whatever status page and, probably like, one URL, that they probably remember. But as an agent, you can go and probably crawl like 100 pages or 100 sources in a couple of minutes and come back with a really good answer of saying, is it like a new version upgrade or there was something else?
Amazing. All right, so looking at time, I think we are going to, I forget what the next one was. And then, sorry, I'm going to peek. I'm going to peek one more time. Sorry, oh no. Okay, hold on. Okay, sorry. So the way I have a little timer here, we've got 5 minutes left for these panel questions, and then we're going to open up to Q&A. And so we'll do one more of these. We'll open it up to Q&A, and we'll go from there. Sound good? Yeah? All right. Okay. Did anyone catch anybody's eye?
I want you to talk more about MCP.
That's a mistake to ask me to talk about MCP because I'm going to take all night to talk about MCP. But sure, what do you want to talk about? Should we talk about MCP?
You want to do this one or you want to do the skills one?
I'm actually really I think either of them are really good. This one, the skills of the human developer to me is really, really good.
Yeah.
So I actually have a term that I made like 2-3 months ago. I was talking to Simon Willison about like what the skill evolution looks like. And the term that I came up with is a full stack person. Like it's a terrible acronym. Like it doesn't quite work, but like I firmly believe that this is where we're moving at. So
Wait. So I'm just one giant markdown file.
You're a giant markdown file. That's exactly how it works. But basically, the idea here is that we had previously these very clearly delineated roles. Like somebody's a product manager, somebody's a documentation writer, somebody's an engineer. With a lot of the agentic tools that we have now, a lot of these lines, again, become super blurry because I know for myself, like I write code, I write docs, I write specs, I then review those specs, I then go to marketing and work with our marketing folks on a GTM motion. Like you do everything. So a lot of these things that were previously blockers was like, oh, well, we're trying to build a web experience. I'm not necessarily as familiar with the latest Next.js version. I don't need to because I can just ask Claude to go and write this for me. But now this means that the differentiating skill set for me is not me knowing Next.js. It's do I have a sense of taste? Do I have the ability to understand what is good documentation? Do I understand what does it mean to architect a system to make sure that it doesn't fall over when I deploy it to Cloudflare, right? So a lot of these skills start becoming much more spread out than it was before. Like, oh, I'm the engineer that works on the back end. Now I do everything. And I think that's going to only accelerate more and more. And we see different companies adopt this. Like you see the term like product engineer, right? And the idea behind a product engineer is exactly that. Like you're somebody that understands the product and also can build stuff.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think a lot of it's going to come down to taste. Like I think of that hilarious meme that's like maybe 2 years old or so of that guy, Rick Rubin, who's a music producer from Hollywood area who has like no musical skills, can't read music, can't play instruments, but he's still this luminary that all these artists go to like get advice on their music. And like it's for a while it's been kind of a funny meme. It's like, oh, this guy's hilarious, but like now I see in my day job like I'm kind of becoming that guy where it's like I'm letting the AI do all of the work, and like what my job reduces to is like having proper taste about its outputs and like how to direct it further. And I think that's only going to accelerate.
Yeah, I mean, like there was probably a wage premium for knowing syntax engineering, as he was talking about. I mean, like these days you don't need to know like most of the syntax engineering because the system can do it. But you still need to like do the intent engineering of like what the system should do and why are you building it. I think, adopting like this builder's mindset instead of a coder's mindset, is going to help you because you think why and what more than like how part of it. Like most of the coding is like how part of it that the model, essentially will take that away. But I also believe, look, the assembly guys thought, the C++ guys were like lazy or not good. And C++ guys thought like Java, Python folks are lazy. And plus now, this English, prompt developers, some Python expert might look at them. These guys are not really engineers, but always abstraction has raised for programming. I think it's good because more people can build, more people can evolve systems. There is no premium in knowing syntax engineering anymore.
Yeah, I lead a team of engineers, and even before AI got really good at coding, I've always been a big believer in the soft skills of an engineer. And even when I was like a software engineer, I was constantly asking myself, like, why am I building this thing? And like, I'm personally very motivated by like the business impact or like just the impact in general of what I'm building. And so as a leader, I've always been like pushing for that with my engineers. And now with like coding agents being so good, like that's even more true. It's like, okay, like you should be leveraging AI in order to code, and like you should be driving it within the right direction.
Cool. Okay, so yeah, let's open it up for Q&A. I already see hands. Cool.
Hi, this is Gora from Inkeep. And I just wanted to get your thoughts on more about like AI agents. I think we've seen it evolve over the past couple of years. This past winter break, we saw Claude Code blow up, and then we've seen now I think Codex came out last week, which is more like a GUI interface for your AI agents. And so I was just wondering, like, what do you think is going to be like the optimal interface for AI agents? Is it going to be like a chat bubble? Is it going to be Slack? Are you bullish on any certain direction? Or yeah, just curious to hear your thoughts.
I mean, I'll give you a very unsatisfying answer is we don't know. Like, have you seen the last 6 months, right? Like how much has changed in the months alone? So I think like any assumption that I can even say right now would be probably wrong in another 6 months, right? Because now we see a lot of stuff in the terminal. Maybe in 6 months we'll see something that's going to be completely different and it's orchestrated from your mobile app. Like I don't know. So I'd say we're rolling with the punches. Like it's not. I don't know if
I will say I'm a huge fan of AI agents in Slack. Like I live in Slack and
Slack Ops is great.
I love it. I love it. And the terminal too.
I mean, like, I like, how AI is making all the things that we thought boring, like CLI, it's making sexy again. File systems, it's making sexy again. Desktop apps, it's making sexy again. So I think we are so back.
I mean, one kind of silly, possibly more dystopian answer is like Neuralink or something of that sort is kind of the final interface. I mean, I find myself wanting to move up like sort of a modality abstraction. Like I'm in the terminal like all day long now because I'm talking to Claude Code all day long, no matter what I'm doing. I find sometimes like the limiting factor is how fast I can type into the keyboard. So I actually want like voice dictation on top of Claude Code. I'm sure there's like plugins out there that I'm just like too lazy to go try already, but like, give it a month and I'll be doing that too.
I agree. Whisperflow, don't left-hand code.
That is so 2 months ago to type on your keyboard.
Yeah. Hello? Yeah. Maybe question for Dan. So now the MCP is part of the Linux Foundation, a separate foundation, and we know that A2A is also part of the Linux Foundation. So it's kind of in relevance with one of the panel questions. So do you see that eventually they'll be merged under one foundation? And what do you think about the MCP becoming basically main protocol for agent to agent? And maybe second question, if I can allow for everybody. We know like humans are not like one-to-one talking. Yeah, usually we talk in groups, in Slack channels. So what do you think about emerging, let's say, agentic meshes and how it will evolve? There will be separate enterprises or like separate protocols for agent mesh. We know like Matrix org, such like this. So what do you think about that? Thank you.
So, I'll take leave. These are the smartest people. I have to go and attend a meeting because I'm building boring enterprise software. So, but these are the smartest people. Don't leave them. Ask all the questions you have.
Let's give some applause for Vijay. All right, I'll answer the question on MCP and A2A. First of all, caveat, like I don't know what Google's plan is around A2A. I cannot speak for them. I can only speak for MCP. That being said, I see MCP being more and more evolved in a lot of ways that you would expect the agent-to-agent protocols to exist, right? So I treat MCP as essentially the substrate for a lot of the data connections, application connections, and these are all things that agents already need. So if I can connect with an MCP server to your CRM or to an application, like my favorite MCP server is Blender MCP. If anybody, like if you haven't tried it, like you absolutely should. It actually is really good about building like 3D models, right? But a lot of these capabilities are actually like, if you can use it for applications and other services, why wouldn't you be able to use it for agent-to-agent communication? And of course, there's constraints and restrictions and maybe abstractions that need to work in. But the way it's been evolving, I see MCP being that and more, personally.
I don't know if I have anything to add there.
We have the second question, right, on agent meshes.
I mean, so agent meshes?
Yeah.
The main thing that comes to mind on the second question there is just like, it's funny how software development has gone from like waiting for your build to finish to waiting for your agent to finish. Yeah. And I've noticed that there's just like more like work trees or just like being able to do multiple things simultaneously so that you can accomplish more while you're waiting for these long running agents. And I think that's the most applicable like multi-agent thing, which I know is kind of a boring answer because they're not like working together, but I do think that there is value there and we're moving towards that direction. I know like with OpenClaw, I heard that some people are like, you know, creating a whole company with their OpenClaws, and then for some reason they started like planning an offsite or something. I do think there's still some like development to be done there because they just start talking to each other and not stopping and wasting tokens. So I still think it's just the beginning. We're so early. So I still think there's a lot of development to happen there.
What I think on that question that might be interesting is like we see agent teams and how they start to work. And there's always like one orchestrator and then a bunch of little agents and then they report up. Like, will agents eventually get to the point where they're like, no, we don't report up. We're flat structure all the way through. We do whatever we want. Everybody ships.
Yeah, I think this is where a lot of the conceptual pieces that we have now in a lot of the modern organizations, like, oh, you have a hierarchy and a manager of manager. Like, does that really matter? Right? Like, if you have a fleet of agents that are going and building your new backend, do you care who those agents report to versus these are agents responsible for your backend? Like, I don't know. To me, like, it's...
Hello? First, thank you all for taking the time. You guys did a great job. I was wondering, you talked on this idea of taste is the most important thing that a human can bring to the table now. How do you think our interfacing with agents is changing what is seen as tasteful or what is best practice?
Sam, do you want to take it? I mean, I have thoughts on that. Like, to me, like, taste is it's a very subjective thing. Like, I don't know if there's any like best practices around taste. It's like, ask like Van Gogh. It's like, what's the best practices for making a painting, right? It's like, well, it's going to be different. And I think that it's ultimately a lot of that stuff is going to be in the eye of the beholder. But ultimately, if you look at it from a very pragmatic stance, it's, do you understand what your customers are actually trying to do? Do you understand how to solve the problem for them in a way that actually meets the expectations of those customers? A lot of this like could be described as taste, and it's a little bit more like innate and not documentable, if you will. Like, you just have to, like, you know, like the one of those like Steve Jobs analogies, like, you know it when you see it. Yeah.
When everyone was saying how important taste is, I was like, inside, I was like, yes, because Mintlify is like a design forward company that cares like an unreasonable amount about taste. And I think what's interesting there is that all the skills that I've worked on in terms of like being able to define what I want and be able to convey that, like kind of like applies to when we're building agents. And it's so hard to put a finger on why I like Claude Code so much. It just feels so smart. It feels like it could just do what I want it to do. And if let's say we're evaluating AI and there's like a column of one, like answers from one and answers from another, and we're not aligned on what we think is like the better answer, we're cooked. Like, and it's so hard to really put a finger on like what that actually is. Like, that's where like, that's what taste is, I would say. But and I guess like the answer that we've come to that answers it the most is like, are you solving a problem for somebody? But yeah, those are just my random thoughts.
I mean, I think it's possibly becoming harder too, because like that last mile of building a great product is like what really differentiates you now, and like building the, you know, working 95% of it is like easier than ever before. But at the same time, like now you're not as involved in the actual implementation details of what you're building. So it's like harder to have attention to detail, but at the same time, like more important because that's what sets you apart.
I feel like I keep reverting back to software engineering, but one fun thing that I would like to cite here is like I feel like the way that I talk or type has changed, where I'm like intentionally trying to not sound like AI, like no more M dashes. Sometimes I'm typing more colloquially than I used to because I want to make it feel more human.
That's actually a very good observation, where something that I personally really like is I spend a lot of time writing blog posts on my blog just because I enjoy it. I'll document things. And it's very easy to tell when somebody wrote a blog post would just like toss the idea into like Claude and had it spit out whatever it is, versus somebody that actually put the care and the thoughtfulness into like, let me actually think how a human would read this and understand this and then parse this and perceive it, right? And a lot of these things are very much innate in the sense that you have to develop the sense of like, how do you solve other problems, right? Like, and this is like, you can't just expect that just because you have these amazing tools that now all of a sudden your humanity just kind of disappears behind the scenes.
Two things on that. One, I love that cooked can be used in both the positive and the negative, always. And I forgot the second one. Yes, microphone, and then we are up on time. Yeah, I know. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we won't have time for more questions after this one, but we will let you talk to the panelists in person. You can go up to them and chit chat.
Yeah, you come straight up.
All right, I'll ask like 5 questions. Come on, get it all in right now. Shameless plug for Rick Rubin. Let's do it again. The Creative Act. If you want to learn about taste, that's the best way to do it. You talked about agents and delegation of responsibility and how it may not matter. It may be flat. It may be hierarchical. How are we going to think about liability if it doesn't matter who is doing the work? And how are we thinking about attributing responsibility across agentic networks?
Yeah, I think that it's a hard question that a lot of enterprises are already thinking about, right? Like prior to my role at Anthropic, I was at Microsoft, where I was involved in this concept of working with the awesome folks that built this agentic identity, right? And the idea is that when I delegate tasks to the agent, I actually have a very much paper trail that goes and says, I then delegate to this agent to do X, Y, and Z. This agent can then spin up sub-agents and do things, but there is a trail of kind of it's your standard observability of saying, here's where it originated and here's where it ended up. And if something happens, you can trace it back and see what happened, right? So I think a lot of these tools of controlling the agentic identity, having proper observability and logging, having proper ways to introspect that and react to that in real time is going to be probably the most important thing, right? Like if I have an agent that all of a sudden starts trying to delete my database, how do I react to that quickly, right? And the question to that comes down to like what guardrail is this and what like identity operates under, what permissions does it have, for how long? Do you delegate it for like this agent can just do things, or can it do things for half an hour? Right. So I think we're in the very, very early days of fleshing that out, but that is going to become more and more of an emphasis as we go, because I feel like just the standard patterns that we've been applying to regular software no longer apply, and it's just not going to scale.
Yeah, I don't know if this is something that I like think will happen or more so just hope that will happen, but I do hope at least that like there's always some like directly responsible individual. It's a human being for like the output that was generated. Like in the case where you write a blog post word by word, like you type the word, you're responsible for that word. If you generate it in ChatGPT, like you ask the GPT model for the completion, so that's on you. Like if you ask Claude Code for it and it's running in a loop as an agent harness, like you still kind of ask for that. And like then it gets to this like more distributed model where it's like you ask an agent that asks another one, that asks another one. I guess I hope for the sake of like society and business that like we can always trace these things back to a person, like hold that human being accountable for it.
Yeah, I don't have much to add to this. I definitely don't think it's solved today. And I think it's a huge problem. I think there's so many security concerns with AI right now, and they need to be solved. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks so much, everybody. Yeah, give it up for the panelists. Fantastic. Oh, no. I'm like, I'm not pressing the button. Great. So yeah, thanks so much, everybody. We'll be mingling here. Shreya?
We're going to go into the raffle announcements now. So thank you so much to our panelists. Yeah.
Yeah.